Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Awesome in Seattle podcast. This is your host, Christian Nossum, and today I am joined by two beautiful women. One of them is my wife, and I'm excited. Shannon Nossum is here as my co-host today.
Hello, hello.
And we're here on my right with Amanda McKane.
Hi.
An Airbnb guru host extraordinaire. We're talking all about Airbnbs today. So this is going to be a very, very exciting one. So let's just jump right into it. Amanda, awesome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your short-term rental portfolio and what that looks like right now?
Yeah. Currently today we have about 7 short-term rentals.
Nice.
So it makes up a little bit less than half of our total portfolio. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of scattered everywhere between North Carolina, Virginia, Arizona, California, and in Washington, and soon to be 2 more here in Seattle.
Dang.
Amazing.
That's impressive.
I'm jealous. I'm very jealous.
I know. So can you share your journey, your real estate investing journey, and really what drew you to the Airbnb space, the short-term space? Yeah,
so it's a little bit of a ski bum story. I lived in Lake Tahoe for about 10 years while I was going to college. Yes. Yeah. My husband went to school in Santa Cruz, so we were back and forth. And living in Lake Tahoe, there's a lot of vacation rentals.
Yes.
And so I was serving tables and going to school and just thought, like, you can own a house at the lake that makes you money. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And so with my husband graduating college and getting his degree, it made more sense for us to come to Seattle instead of San Francisco, which is another biotech hub. And we bought our first house hack in Seattle in 2016.
Nice.
So we bought a house that had an unfinished basement, but about 7-foot ceilings, which I know the two of you can appreciate.
Yes, that's a big deal.
And so it was completely unfinished, and we took down our first project, finishing half of the basement to make an in-law suite to rent out.
Nice. Well done. What lessons did you kind of learn from that experience of taking an unfinished basement and finishing it off? I'm sure as your first one, that was probably very eye-opening. What were some of the bigger lessons you learned?
The money you save in DIY, you'll pay in couples therapy. So it was great. We obviously had to learn a lot about how to build and construction and getting through it and being cost effective. But more importantly, when you're going to do an Airbnb space, noise canceling things and how you can remediate sounds perforating through both floors, guest access, and then guest expectations when you're living above them. So a less than ideal first scenario for a vacation rental, but definitely gave us the opportunity to go out and do a few more because we had that house hack cash flow opportunity.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited to learn about this because I've been wanting to do an Airbnb for a while. And so I'm thrilled to pick your brain, particularly on Seattle, because that's where we are. Yep. So I want to know, what are the rules in Seattle?
So Seattle is obviously changed a lot. Since 2017, they instituted a new rule. So we have not had a live Airbnb since the new rules kind of took place. So we will be going online with 2 more units here in the next month. And with those new rules, you can have a primary residence with a short-term vacation rental permit and 1 other property in your name. So each person gets their primary plus 1. So that way you don't have one person with 8 to 10 units and you're not oversaturating the market and you're keeping affordable housing.
And does that, like if it's a duplex, if the building has more than 1 unit, does that count as 1 or is that 2?
So I was just looking into the code on this a little bit because our situation is unique that we will have a duplex. So it could be considered, depending on how the city defines it, as an auxiliary unit or an ADU to the main property. I'm hoping they're going to see it as an auxiliary unit, not requiring 2 permits. So we are about to embark on that journey and see how they're going to define it. Yeah. Cross your fingers. We're going to hopefully name it an auxiliary unit since it is a basement unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in doing your research before you bought this most recent property, is Seattle a good market? What does the Seattle Airbnb market look like?
Seattle is a great market certain times of the year, and I think you see that in most vacation rental markets. So with that, we know we're going to have a peak season, a shoulder season, and a really low season. I mean, I know you guys haven't noticed, but it rains here a bit.
What?
Yeah.
No.
No way.
So with that, we will probably do a blend of two different strategies with midterm rental and short-term rental. So when we're looking at the numbers, you can generally assume in peak season you'll make double to triple what you would on an average monthly rent rate.
Wow.
And that will typically take you through the lower shoulder seasons if you're paying attention and you're not overspending in different categories. But for those low shoulder seasons, I like to pivot to a midterm rental if it makes sense. If we're still seeing that influx of bookings, I'll leave it as a short-term rental. But to your point, when I'm looking at the different data points for Seattle, we're looking at AirDNA, we're looking at Rabu, we're looking at RankBreeze. Those are three of the tools that I kind of target to see what's my occupancy rates going to be, what are the nightly rates going to be, what areas of Seattle do I need to be in, where do people want to be?
Where do they want to be?
Well, they want to be walkable, right? Okay. Some people now, it used to be downtown corridor, but walkability is a huge one. Do they want to be on the water? Do they want to be in a place that is close to public transportation? So I think that depends on the product that you have. Is it a condo? Is it an apartment? Is it a house? Like, what is your group size with the product you have? That'll determine it as well. So for ours, we have a rooftop deck, so we have a cool amenity in that way. We're close to Gasworks Park, so you get that walkability. You're still in a safe neighborhood. You still have parking. So those are some of the things you'll see. And there's an easier way to explore the market and what you're looking for using something called the enemy method, where you're going to look at 4 to 5 listings that complement what you're going to bring to the market. And what are they doing? How are they performing? What amenities do you have or do you need? And using a tool like RankBreeze to plug in, you can kind of see what their 90-day trends are at, 60-day trends are at, and their occupancy rates.
I've never heard of that. I did not know.
Amazing.
That it's almost like comps in real estate, but in the Airbnb space.
Yeah, when I started, that didn't exist. Like, you were literally going on to people's profiles and seeing how many guest feedbacks they'd gotten in a month to try and quantify how many bookings they had and like when they slowed down.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So technology's been a huge help. That's amazing. Okay, so it sounds like Seattle's good. I saw your Airbnb. I walked it when it was under construction. You guys, it's amazing. It's beautiful. Rooftop deck is killer. This is going to be a really good one.
We need a parents' weekend away. Maybe we could just use yours.
Mine, or you guys have that great rooming house. You could get that college vibe.
So fun. Yeah. It's so quiet there. There's no dirty dishes. It's amazing. No. So one of the things we were talking about is what other things are nearby, because as we like to hack our life, we have this house in Hawaii. We get to go visit it. Now Christian's like, what about something that's within driving distance of where we actually live versus a
for a vacation house
airplane
that we can go to and just like you hack it so that we can use it for free.
What are some areas, or do you know of any areas within like 3 hours of Seattle that are good Airbnb markets?
Yes. So I'm exploring these currently. So if you have a waterfront fixer that I can Airbnb, like I'm not an HOA, tell Christian, let me know.
Yes,
but
please.
I think some really interesting markets, and we have one in one of them in the Olympic National Park, Olympic Peninsula. Obviously things that are close to waterfront, Suncadia, Leavenworth. The challenge right now, like San Juan Islands would have been a dream. Their short-term rental permit moratorium just lifted, but now it's a waiting list. So many of these markets, I'm trying to think of the county in particular, the name of the county, but out near Lake Chelan.
Okay.
A lot of these places have instituted very heavy permitting and regulations, and that's a great thing. We like to see that because at least you know you can play within the lines, and you just have to follow X, Y, and Z. But typically once they've reached their quota, they're going to turn really, really slow, or some of them you have to own for at least a year. So it depends. Is it a fixer that you can take time to fix up and then get on that waiting list, or is it something where we're not seeing enough turns in the permitting office that we're going to have to sit on this investment for 3 to 5 years? Negative cash flow before we're in the lottery.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But I do think there's one particular place that I'm looking at that I think is...
She's like, I'm not telling you.
Well, I don't know, because I feel like on any podcast you hear about real estate, one person says the market and 3,000 people go to that market.
No one listens to us. It's fine.
Okay, well, Camino Island, I love you. Let's work together. I think Camino's super awesome because you don't have to take a ferry to get there. you're close, you can drive, but it's still, when you're on it, Iverson Beach, feels like you're worlds away. You get sunlight. So that's a market that I would really love, similar to you guys, to purchase a property that is hopefully a fixer. I think they're calling it a stir. So that's what most of my products have been, is a short-term rental where you still rehab the product and then take your initial investment back out. So
cool.
Yeah, Olympic National Park has actually blown me away in its productivity. We book out like 6 months in advance, and during peak season see about like a 90% occupancy rate.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It books out more than the Tahoe property. Like,
wow.
People plan it well in advance because it is a national park. Lake Tahoe is a huge vacation destination, but I feel like these national park seekers are...
And you know they're not going to move. The national park's not going to move.
Right.
So you don't have those concerns.
There is a big vote happening where our property is. So all to say, they didn't have strict regulations in place. Now they're defining them, and we're on the cusp of, will we be grandfathered in or will we not be? So what flexibility will we have, and what will the numbers look like?
Tough.
What will be your plan if you're not?
So we underwrite every deal that it would still work as a long-term rental. Because I know there's a lot of talk in the space about you should buy a property, have it be a vacation rental, position it that way, and all in bet on that. And I can appreciate in those certain markets where people do it. For example, we had one in the Smoky Mountains National Park. It would have never cash flowed as a long-term rental, but most everything else I like to underwrite as a long-term rental in case there's anything that changes, or a black swan event like COVID.
Yeah.
When we owned our Tahoe property, everyone pivoted to a long-term rental. We just made improvements and were able to ride that out, but you can never know. And there's just some hefty mortgages to hold when you're not getting that cash flow.
Yeah. Do you have any other tips on selecting properties? Like, what do you look for? How many beds? How many baths? How big? What's your buy box look like?
I think that depends on the specific region. Like, you don't want to go, for instance, Gatlinburg, Smoky Mountains, and buy something that you could buy in a neighborhood here in Seattle. People are looking for a certain cabin aesthetic. They're looking for that log type building. I took a bet and did an old stone building and renovated it, but it had wood accents on the interior. In Lake Tahoe, you're going for a mountain house. People still like modern mountain, but again, you don't want to feel like you're in the suburbs of a city you're going into. So is it in line with the market you're going to? I think something that's interesting, people always think bigger is better. But what we're starting to see is these smaller places rent better, where it's 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, because my preference had always been a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house. If I could, hot tub, all the amenities. That's great. You know, your family, you're not going to go, well, your family might need a 5-bedroom house.
Well, we got 3 kids. So.
But some families, you know, you're looking for a 2-bedroom house that's a little bit more cost effective. The cleaning fees aren't going to be through the roof. And, you know, you can manage that size house.
Especially if one of those bedrooms is like a bunk room or something like that.
Absolutely. So in bigger markets that are more traditional, you're seeing some of those 2-bedroom units book up a lot better than these 4- and 5-bedroom units. And so those shoulder seasons don't hit as hard. So I think it's a balance in defining what is there already too much of, where's the need? Because if there's just 5-bedroom huge houses, maybe you could, you know, really drive a high occupancy rate having that 2-bedroom more midline.
Doing the opposite.
Right.
Yeah. That's really smart. Amanda is an amazing designer. She picks all the finishes, puts all the furniture in. So I wanted to ask you, one of the things that you have to do with an Airbnb is furnish it.
Yes.
So tell us about that piece.
Please.
What are your tips? How do you do it? Where do you buy your stuff? What does it cost?
Great. So there's a general rule of thumb, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree. James Stannard. You want to budget $10,000 per bedroom. So if it's a 4-bedroom house, budget $40,000. And that sounds like a hefty amount, but you're getting down to the linens, the mattresses, the silverware, what kind of coffee machines, what kind of pans are there. All of these amenities, people go in and open a drawer and it's one of those cheap plastic spatulas instead of like a nicer silicone. Like all of those things add up in the guest experience. So you're either going to trade money or trade your time by trying to do it discounted and go to Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and find all of these pieces, or you can work with a company or yourself to just buy everything and get it shipped. And when you're looking at different products, obviously simple things like, who wants to stay in a house that has gray sheets? Nobody. Nobody. And I see like that mistake all the time. Always white.
Yes.
You can bleach it. It feels clean. It feels like you're at a nice hotel.
Yes.
Any pillows, even if they're decorative, need to have zippers. Like simple things. Everything has to be washed. Another thing, when you're looking at sofas, performance fabric, outdoor fabric. Yeah. It's going to be high touch, high wear. People are going to say they don't have dogs. They have dogs. Everyone on Airbnb has a support animal.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you can say no dogs until you're blue in the face. You are going to just be up against that hurdle. So we proactively are dog friendly. And what that means for us is you have the spill mat. Dog bowls are there. We leave treats for the dogs. Like,
oh, wow.
We have dog blankets because you say no dogs on furniture.
Yeah.
These dogs are their babies. The dogs are on furniture. So you do the best to like make sure your furniture is ready for that. So the other thing I like to do when I get new product in is I Scotch guard everything.
Oh, good.
So
super smart.
I take it outside, headboards, everything. And I just try and do a couple of rounds of Scotch guard. So Sunbrella fabric, if you can get Sunbrella fabric for your sofas, smart, things that can be wiped down.
Where do you like to buy those sofas?
So I have a few vendor accounts, but like Wayfair is a great one. They have different price points, and Wayfair has a lot of cool programs that if you are in this space and buying furniture often, you can get trade, and then they'll hold all of the shipments for you and ship all at once.
Wow.
And they'll design it for
Really?
They'll design it for you. Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Another cool thing, I think it's called Minoa. There's a lot of these bulk buying platforms now that have come together to take all of these vendor discounts and give them to short-term rental operators so you can kind of buy in bulk, and they have packages outlined. So they've taken a lot of the guesswork out of it. When I was doing design for people's homes during the pandemic and it was like furniture was 20 weeks out, I was just heading to the outlets with a cargo van and pointing and just looking for the stuff that had the right fabrics, zippered covers, some of those things. I like leather a lot, easy to wipe down. So something that's visually interesting, I like to go pseudo-neutral in those basic things because you can always
have accent colors here.
Yeah, that's where you can bring it in. And then you can continue to update it as trends change. You're not stuck with like
a crazy pattern couch or something.
A chevron print headboard. Hello, 2008.
Totally.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, smart.
Do you have any things that people often forget to add to their Airbnb?
Lighting is a big one. You are probably setting up your Airbnb in the daytime, and everybody who sets up an Airbnb should stay at their Airbnb for a couple of days. Like
you'll learn real quick.
Yeah, you're like, I actually need a coffee grinder. Like, you know,
all those little things.
The can opener, like it was on my list, but I overlooked it on this checklist or that checklist. Lighting's a big one. Guest access to things, like having it automated. I think a lot of people miss certain things and having that communication somewhere within the home. You sent one person all the check-in instructions and the guidebook. That person may not be the best communicator to the group. So in order to help with the frustration of other guests coming to the house, I like to have QR codes of my home manual and the Wi-Fi sign up right when you walk in.
Smart.
Amazing.
So like some of that stuff is simple. Like the property manager is here. Here's his phone number. Other things that other guests, it's hard because every guest is different. So when you're setting your home up and it's in a regional place that people don't know about or haven't visited before, they may not be used to a bare box or do not leave a wrapper in your car. So it's I think it's area specific on things that often get overlooked.
I've definitely heard stories of bears like breaking into cars, and then also like someone left the back door open and then they went out for a few hours and they came back and there was a bear in the house, and it's like, holy cow.
We have had that.
That's insane. That's crazy.
We have had that. Our house sat vacant in Tahoe before we renovated it, and I came home to a bear in the downstairs.
What?
We had a bear that he used to live in the garage, so to him, he's like, excuse me, ma'am, like this
You're
is
in
my
my
house.
home.
Yeah.
This
so
is my cave.
Once they've made home, like they'll just keep coming back year after year. So our house specifically, we have big signs like not even a wrapper in your car. He will get in. Say hi to Henry for us.
Everybody's worried. Everybody's worried about parties. This is what they are concerned about.
Yeah.
But you have bears.
Yeah.
I have a hack for the party thing.
Okay, this is what I was just going to bring up next. Let's talk about some challenges. So, I'm sure you've had parties.
Yep.
Because it is an Airbnb, and that is often why people are getting them.
Yep.
Tell us, how do you manage that?
The platform that I most use is Airbnb. And so they've gotten a lot better about filtering through. People can't book for one night if they haven't had reviews before. They have some other algorithm settings that will say this reservation is flagged. So it'll call it out beforehand. The other thing is we don't have instant book on if you don't have 2 good reviews and a government ID uploaded. So we don't even deal with that mess. Typically, that means they've had 2
good stays.
Yeah, 2 good stays, and they've uploaded their government ID. It's not a surefire way, but the surefire way, we pay the gentleman who lives next door to our properties.
All of your properties?
Not all of them, but we have friends at most. We've made friends. And most people, we're not buying nice houses. We're buying the house that people are like, somebody please fix that. So usually, even though it's going into a vacation rental, they're happy to see it transition. So our Tahoe property is 4-bed, 3-bath. So it can take...
lends itself to a party.
Yeah. And the best thing is it says the property manager lives next door should you need anything. So it says it all right there. Like he's near, and it says it on the listing before you book. People won't read that.
No.
And so when they come and arrive, it's like the first thing they see. And he's a wonderful gentleman, and he helps out in summertime. We can get overloads of trash. You can't have trash outside with the bears. So it has to be brought out the morning of trash. It's just some nuanced stuff. Like if the snowplow is late to come, like he's out there with his snowblower, or we get 17 feet like we did last season.
Wow.
He's sending you pictures of the roof. Like, don't worry, your windows can still open. The trusses aren't like flexing.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So that has been like my surefire hack. And then in our Olympic National Park property, the gentleman across the street, we let him store a car in our garage we don't use. So he feels ownership to make sure things aren't happening, and will text us or communicate to us before we ever get a violation or a call. I mean, in Tahoe, I don't hear anything because my neighbor, he walks right over. I'll find out from the guests, like, please let your neighbor know I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh my God, well, Robbie took care of him. Like, I don't even know, because they respect him, and he sees it as his home to take care of.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Amazing.
What other significant challenges have you faced?
I think guest expectations can be a really tough thing to manage, right? People have spent a lot of money. They've driven a long way. In other destinations, they might have gone through some weather challenges. They might have sat in traffic. They might have closed the freeways. So it's taken 12 hours to get there.
Jeez.
So by the time
sounds like you've dealt with a few things.
So when they arrive to your property, if it's not meeting their expectations, it's really hard to work backwards from that. And ways that happens is if guests don't read the listings. They don't read the listings. Yeah. You can put it in photos. They're going to go through the first 8 that appease them and move forward. So it's a blessing and a curse to have a well-designed property that maybe it could be still older, and you've communicated, my property has ship-like stairs that might not be safe for some children. And then a mom can get there after traveling for 12 hours. And be like, what, even if we have all the baby gates and all of this and that, it's not meeting her expectations. And it's really hard to work backwards. Or like seasonal things. You get in spring mice or bear season. Like, you are going to get Mother Nature. We live adjacent to a state park. There's things that are out of your control. If you left the front door open to bring in all your groceries, a lot of things probably just came in with you, or your kids are outside playing and the slider's left open. I can't manage that. I can hear you out. I can empathize with you. I can ask you, what would you like for me to do in this scenario? How could I have better communicated it and hear you? But that's really, it's going to happen. People that have perfect 5-star reviews, all of my kudos, because I get to a place where I'm not giving you a credit. I mean, you better understand what you're doing. You didn't take the time to read this. This didn't meet your expectations. I hate that for you. But I'm not going to reward you for
not
making a poor. So it's a fine line, because I think the catch-22 with these platforms that have reviews is people may not have realistic expectations when they're going to a property, and you can't solve all of these problems. Bad weather, I don't refund for bad weather. Like, we have full-on winters. You hope you get great snow, but I can't guarantee it's not going to be snow while you're driving up.
Yeah.
You know, July 4th weekend, we're seeing 100, tens of thousands of people. So you have to manage your own expectations. I can't be responsible for that. And I encourage everyone to book travel insurance. Like, giving them back the ownership of how they can better manage their trip, things that they should bring. And again, when they go to book, have you read the home rules and instructions to make sure it fits your family needs? And everyone just clicks yes, but
they don't actually read.
Yeah, so I think that's the most challenging part. More often than not, 90% of the guests are great, but that 10%, it can be time consuming, and you're rewarded for it. So it's like, it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
It's not a hands-off business, that's for sure. Yeah.
What is your advice on pricing? We just talked about 4th of July, so it's a busier time. How do you do your pricing? Do you use any of those technology pieces that allow you to have dynamic pricing?
Yep. So we use Price Labs. We started using that about 2 years ago. I had never used it before because I have a great community of people who are also in short-term rentals. So we were kind of like archaic and texting and like, how are you looking for your occupancy? But once we brought online our Smoky Mountains property, people there are very tech savvy. They have every amenity. They're like professional vacation rental owners. So being in that space really helped me like streamline and think through, okay, this doesn't need to be on my plate. Airbnb rewards you for optimizing your listing often and changing that pricing, changing your photos, changing your description. The algorithm kind of lifts you up. Oh, wow. So with Price Labs, it, I think, does it every 24 hours based on the market around you.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we'll see a swing from super, super rough low season, $185 a night, like I almost just rather not rent it, up to like July 4th, we'll price around $1,100 to $1,200 a night.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, wow.
That's huge.
Do you manage these properties yourself, or do you have a property manager?
I do manage these ones myself. Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment. I love texting people about toasters at 2 a.m. No, it's usually not, again, most of it's automated messaging. And then if a guest has a specific question, most people are wonderful and kind and so grateful. So you remember that when you do get a guest that isn't, and it's able to be like, oh yeah, I haven't had to deal with this in a while. This is part of my job, and I'm being paid for this.
Yeah.
So, how much time does it take you think? Can you quantify that?
Yeah, I'd say in total, 4 to 6 hours a week, because there's cleaner communication. You're paying your quarterly or monthly taxes depending on the region. Going into summer or high season for whatever property it may be, that may go up a little bit because you're going to have different guest communication, or they may have questions, right? You want to tell them this is the best restaurant, this is the best hike. You want to be that like point person for them. And some people are so cute and excited, and then you're like, I've just spent 4 hours talking to a stranger on the internet, like, giving them this feedback. So overall, I'd say between 4 and 8 hours. I could probably optimize it a little bit more with my automated messaging, but I do enjoy talking to them. Like, people are excited. It makes you real. And I think they respect your home differently when you're authentic with them and have a conversation. Like, you're not a faceless hosting company. You're a real human being who loves this home as much as you want them to.
Absolutely. What would it, do you know what the cost is if you were to hire a property manager? What does that look like?
Yeah. It looks like about 25%, depending on the market, 25 to 30%. So obviously standard property management for our long-term rentals ranges between like 8 and 10%. So it's a pretty hefty climb because they are, and it depends on everything they do, right? If they're doing a check-in before the guests arrive to make sure everything's set up for them, that's usually like a $50 charge depending on where you are. If they're doing all the guest communication end to end, that's when we'll see that 25 plus range. But at this point for the bigger markets, I'd say you're looking at like 30%, 25 to 30, 25 on the low end.
So if you really want your short-term rental to be a completely hands-off investment, you're most likely shelling out 30% of your revenue.
Correct.
In order to take that off your plate.
Yep. And then you typically pay on top of that for any repairs or if they have to buy any of the amenities for you.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But for this season of our life, we're taking all of that cash flow to redeploy into other investments. So It's 48 hours to me.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Amanda, how much do you usually put down, or what's kind of the best deal you've gotten on an Airbnb?
I've had a few wins. I think we chatted about the Tahoe property a little bit, and that one was a significant win. As I mentioned, it had been sitting on the market for over a year.
Wow.
A 3-story chalet-style project that needed some love, and I was here to give it. And so I think what was unique about that is we were able to position it as a second home mortgage.
Nice.
Because
Smart.
we do stay there.
Yep.
When we got to the closing table, after seller credits, it has a 3-story deck, so 3 stories up. It used to have lake views before the trees grew. So this really high deck that had some rot to it that needed to be addressed. And we were bold in asking for our seller's credit. And I think our cash to close on that conventional 5% down came out to $17,500.
What?
Dang.
And when
Oh my
I
God.
saw the closing statement, I was like, a Toyota Corolla or a house in Tahoe,
Which one?
Or a vacation.
yeah,
Like a
it
family
literally
vacation, that's
was
like how much it
mind blowing. We were able to negotiate it
Wow.
and talk with the seller. She had already moved; her family had lived there, but it had been sitting another property that had been just sitting vacant
Forever.
and she's paying to just maintain it, to keep bears out, to
Yep.
keep
Yeah.
leaks from happening. And so, again, mutually agreeable terms, and the amount we brought to that closing table, the $17,500, was all the cash flow we had gotten as making the basement suite in our Seattle property
Wow.
an in-law suite. So, the
Wow.
power of
Otherwise
buying,
known as an ADU in Seattle.
yeah,
Technically.
yeah. So like that power of just buying that first home on a 3.5% down FHA mortgage allowed us to buy the second property in Tahoe, and we've just taken the proceeds from each one to the next one. I mean,
Incredible.
we took the cash flow from the Tahoe property that had saved up for a year and a half or something, and that was the down payment for our Gatlinburg property using a DSCR loan, so debt service coverage ratio
Yep.
for a fix and flip. And
Amazing.
it's just that power of it compounding. And we joke that it's monopoly money. We don't see any of the cash. We don't do anything fun with it.
Yeah.
Outside of buying vacation rentals, but like doesn't affect our daily life because we don't touch it.
Yep.
So you just get to buy these funny
More and
little
more and
homes.
more.
Yeah, these funny little homes as long as you don't touch it. So I think
Smart.
getting creative when talking to your lender, what different products or what you need to do to meet the requirements to qualify for conventional loans. I know there's so many different loan types, but you may be
Tons, yeah.
surprised with the down payment that you have to bring for your cash to close, or if value add to bring that equity in. So when you cash out refinance, if you choose to do so, you may not have money left in the deal. So
Yeah.
if you're even net neutral, it could still be a huge opportunity to give your family those free vacations and a
Yep.
destination you prefer.
With tax
Wow.
write-offs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you need a lender referral, just reach out. I can share those with you. So,
Cool.
what are some of the other tech tools that you're using that not just for pricing, but for actually like communication? Because it seems like anytime we've ever rented an Airbnb, I'm always the one that books everything, so I know.
Oh.
That's my job. I'm always getting like really nice messages, and they're always so fast. And I'm like, how do they do this? And my assumption is there's some sort of automated
Yep.
messaging platform.
And that's through Airbnb. There's other ones like Hosty, Guest. Oh, it's Guesty. And there's a few more, but that kind of overcomplicates it for me. I have all of my automated messaging set up in Airbnb. And since we're not doing 40 Airbnbs, 30 vacation rentals, we only have 6 or 7. So
Only.
And Amanda 6 years ago would be slapping this, Amanda.
I'm sure, yeah.
So it doesn't seem daunting with Google Drive and Google Sheets. That's where we keep all of our home manuals so we can update everything there. And then they're provided a link to that for the time duration that they're in the property. And we use Schlagen code to update all of our locks.
Yep.
We
have
do
the same thing in our Maui house because it's just so easy. Just
Yep.
Wi-Fi enabled. Here's your code for this many days, and
Yep.
you're good to go.
The other thing that I hate that I have, but I have to have, is we do have Ring cameras at some of our properties. Like when we're getting dumped on, I need to see the snow load on the back deck.
Yeah.
And you can't articulate to a guest like, hey, can you go out there and get a tape measure out? Is it 4 inches? Is it 10 inches?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
do I need to call a company in to come clear that out? And though we have some of that set up already, there's plow services, having that visibility to see, okay, they missed a spot on the driveway or there was a car at this time, and just not having to involve somebody else makes it easier. And also when you put that, you have video surveillance on your property going back to the parties, I think then they realize like, oh, this isn't what I'm looking for. I'm going to move on to that other property who doesn't have cameras. Yep. And I don't have interest in watching my cameras at all. I don't want to see what you're doing. I barely want to see what I'm doing, let alone I want to see what you're doing.
Absolutely.
But when I need to oh my gosh, we're getting a huge storm or what's this? It's so windy out. How are the trees blowing? When they get up to 80 mile an hour winds, you're watching the cameras be like, okay, we live another day.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we have a Ring camera for Maui. I personally find it depressing when I get a notification because you have all these different beautiful places. You're like, oh, it's raining here, and I'm looking at this either snowy or sunny or just a different place, and I get jealous.
I wonder if Maui's be different than Tahoe, because when I get to any of the properties, I'm like, we gotta fix this, we gotta fix this, and I was like, my joke is, if you love going to a place, don't buy a house there, because you're gonna see the Home Depot of that place.
Yes, you do get to know the Home Depot of that place.
We've spent days in the Home Depot in Maui.
And days in the return line at Home Depot in Maui. Yes.
I had a question about, so it looks like when you buy properties in locations all over the place, there's different needs. And there's different ways to maintain homes. When we bought a property in a new location, we're like, oh, we didn't think about termites. Yeah. We've never had to deal with termites before.
Seattle,
how did you learn all these different specifics that are needed to maintain the homes or just make sure everything's going well when all the needs are different in different locations?
I think the best thing I've ever done is in every one of our Airbnbs, there seems to be this symbiotic relationship of finding a wonderful cleaner who has a wonderful handyman husband.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
That seems like a perfect combo.
We have that synergy at almost every property, and it has been life-changing. I love that big cleaning company is great, but I love a woman who sees my home a person who sees my home as their home, and another person who wants to also see my home as their home, because they're your eyes and ears. And is it always perfect? No. I've also had the luxury, before I had my daughter, I was at most of these properties for the rehab and doing some of the rehab myself. So I've got to insulate underneath our A-frame and see what it looks like and know that we need weather stripping there and the wind's going to come this way and blow that way. So that was kind of my downfall, but also a blessing in that I can kind of understand the things that we're going to see. Termites, for instance, we suffer from that in Tucson, Arizona. So having those contracts in place, so they're doing it seasonal and it's automated. But yes, I think the big win for me has been finding wonderful people who see their home as your home, and you reward them. I'm so grateful. They need anything. How do I get it to you? As it relates to my property, as it doesn't. You're part of my family now. You're saving my life. How can we be mutually respectful or mutual? How can I help you? Help me help you.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. Christian, do you want to ask a little bit about the market and where it's going?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, there's been the Airbnb apocalypse, or I don't know what they call it. They always have weird names for everything. What are you seeing in the market for Airbnbs, and have you seen this complete crumble?
I have not seen a complete crumble. I actually just ran my numbers for 2023. If you're my CPA, I ran them 2 months ago, and I've been on top of it.
It's not March.
Yeah.
Shout out to our CPA,
shout out to our bookkeeper, Jasmine.
Yes.
Hey, Jasmine.
I have been the same for the last 3 years, which is a win for me, considering we were out of pandemic, and now to come out of 2023 with the same numbers, I consider that a huge win when all the communication was Airbnb bust. But I do think you have better operators in this space who are treating this like a business. When we launched ours in 2016, you're like, welcome to our basement apartment. Do you want me to let you in? Now it's this whole automated here's your code, here's the QR code, here's your fruit basket, you know, and I appreciate that as a guest, but as a host, you don't just get to have, a bear print pillow set on your bed and think that you're going to be competitive. You have to be thoughtful about your space, who's coming to it and why. One of my properties, though, was in the Smoky Mountains, where I think the Airbnb bust might be a bigger topic. And so we chose to sell ours in August of this last year. So we had renovated it, fixed it up, but with having a daughter, It was a 2-flight. It wasn't a nonstop flight. And I do think it is important to go see your properties.
Yeah.
It's huge. And so
It's also a tax write-off.
there's who doesn't want to go to Gatlinburg and Dollywood, y'all? I don't. No. It was great, but like it is a different world out there. And when I was driving around, I was just so taken aback by how many new builds I was seeing.
Wow.
And then I did the actual numbers on how many new permits, how many new builds were coming online in the next 6 to 9 months, and then how our occupancy was trending down with pricing.
Wow.
Even though they've seen an increase in people coming to the region. Historically, it's been at like 12 million. Now they're north of 13 something million.
Wow.
So they're seeing that increase, but the saturation is kind of what I would perceive at this tipping point. So we thought it best to sell while it made sense. We didn't have a standard cabin that was the log built. It was this cool stone thing close to town. So we had some advantages there, but they weren't going to be advantages as more projects came online with indoor pools, indoor hot tubs, literally miniature golf in their backyard.
What?
Cool.
Like the amenities in these cabins is not you're renting out a downstairs apartment. Like they really do.
Let's go deeper into that. What design trends or unique trends are you seeing? Because I've been seeing stuff like that with like someone built a mini golf thing in the backyard, and like I saw a video yesterday where the property literally had a lazy river go from the front yard under the house to the backyard.
Insane.
Like, just crazy
Do you have
stuff.
to be a house shaped like a potato?
Yeah.
To
You
do
know,
well?
we don't have a house shaped like a potato yet.
Because there is one in Idaho.
Yeah, there is, and they do exceptionally
Yes,
well.
I've heard. I haven't looked, but I assume.
We hadn't historically been in a place to buy something as cool and unique. And as much as I love cool and unique, at the price point we could afford that made sense to our investing structure, we also had to get our capital back out.
Yeah.
So some banks wouldn't lend on some of these
On a
unique
potato.
properties. It's hard to get lending on a potato.
Can't get $1 million loan on a potato for some reason.
But you are seeing like mural walls.
Yeah.
A moment of silence. I'm going to do one. Do I love them? No. And you're seeing these big, bright colors, and that's not design that I personally really love. I like to evoke design through textures and patterns, but that can be changed and upgraded. And I do think you're seeing a lot of these big, bold commitments to making it a vacation rental, like indoor slides and things that if
Very
you,
themey.
yeah, and if you can't pivot to a long-term rental, that's fine. And there's a lot of people in the space who are like, I'm all in on a short-term rental versus a long-term rental. So I kind of toe that line because I don't personally want to go to a space that has a neon sign that's like, let's go girls. Like, that's not me.
We have one in our house.
We do not.
Like, I love it for people, and I see these themed ones, and I'm like, that is so fun. I would never, that's too much
Not
for me.
your properties,
Yes.
but you'll go visit, maybe.
Yeah, I just
She's
feel
like, no.
I just feel like they're so on trend right now. What's that look like in 18 months when
Yeah,
90%
totally.
of the space
Yeah.
looks like that? So I'm trying to be a little bit more, how can it evolve? And I'm actually struggling that a little bit right now as I design a Seattle property because as somebody who lives here, you're like, am I going to put Starbucks sign? No.
Yeah, like,
But I want to like lean into the coastal vibe. So how do I do that in a taste that I would prefer? But I'm not decorating it for me. I'm decorating it for our guests. And that's why I will be doing my mural wall for the first time.
Yes.
I'm trying to do, we'll see. Hopefully it won't be in bold. It'll be monotone.
What's it going to be your mural of?
I'm trying to do this like black and white vibe of what you would find in the sea around us up the hallway to
cool.
the rooftop. And then, have you guys been into a Filson store?
yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to evoke Filson vibes.
That's a cool vibe.
Yeah.
And that's
love that.
It's got so much longevity as well, just because Filson's been around forever.
And it's iconic to Seattle, and
Yeah.
you feel like Pacific Northwest without
brilliant.
without
Yeah.
a tree mural.
Yes.
And Sasquatch and
Exactly.
a Starbucks cup. So blending those two things
That
without
would be
being
a great mural.
on the
Sasquatch with the Starbucks cup.
yeah, there
you know?
it is. Hey, when
That's
you
more
guys
Leavenworth.
yeah, right. Oh, it's all over the Olympic.
Yeah.
Seabrook
Same
too.
thing.
Seabrook's very
Yeah.
Sasquatch.
Oh yeah, Seabrook. That's another community that's
Yeah. Yeah.
Growing huge. Yeah.
Where do you kind of see the future of short-term rentals heading? Like with all the ever-evolving regulatory issues and market heading. Like, I mean, we saw Palm Springs say no more, and then that market just seems like it cratered. The home prices down there just cratered. What's your opinion on that, and what do you kind of see happening?
I think regulations are your friend because if you're exploring markets without those regulations, you stand that chance to be blindsided.
They're probably coming.
Right.
Yeah.
I prefer regulations. It gives you boundaries. They've set a cap to what makes sense for their community. And also, like, I've lived in some of these communities as well, so I can appreciate that that's still not always a balanced opinion.
Yep.
But if you're going to explore a new place, it better be a traditional vacation tourist market. Maybe they don't have regulations in place, but they've had historical tourism that drives dollars to their community, so they likely have a forward-thinking opinion of it. But if you can, I would stick to a place where there's regulations. Otherwise, it turns into the wild, wild west. Yeah. And you're likely going to, if you're getting great numbers, you're likely going to see some competitors come in pretty quickly. There's not to say that there's not an opportunity there, but I would prefer the regulations to follow the letter of the law, to pay the taxes. Everyone, I'm happy, they're happy, you're happy. There's always a conversation of if you're taking housing supply from the market. Yeah. And that's a hard balance. And I obviously have strong opinions about that because the properties I've bought have never been turnkey. They're not something that's flying off the shelf. They've been sitting on the market for how long? Because people didn't want to repair them or have the money to come and repair them. They wouldn't qualify for a traditional loan.
Yep. So if anything, you're adding some sort of housing supply to the market.
I mean, obviously, I'm making it
livable again.
Yeah, I feel adamantly that everyone else had the opportunity to repair this property, but because we're able to creatively position it in this way, we can afford to make these repairs and bring it back online into the market. So, and add dollars to the community. Totally. I prefer regulations. But if you know of a market with no regulations and great occupancy rate, send me my DMs. I think it's just a matter of time. Yeah. It's a matter of time. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing it in Tahoe, and fortunately, if it's a market that's for it, you typically get grandfathered in and you get streamlined through the process. Or you're in Palm Springs where you thought you were good to go and now you're getting blindsided and this little nest egg that you thought you had is drying up.
It sucks,
Oh, I would be gutted. I mean, we're facing some tough things with our Olympic national. They have a big vote coming up. So we'll see how that comes out. We're fortunate that we ran the numbers as a long-term rental and we pivoted to mid-term rental in the shoulder season. So we're flexible in that way.
Yeah, that's smart.
But it's going to be an interesting season, interesting vote.
But your opinion's not that short-term rentals are dead. It's not a good investment. You shouldn't do it. Because there was a big push online. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. This is the returns.
This was for years.
And so then a lot of people started doing it, quote unquote. A lot of people started doing it, and now it's oversaturated and it's a bad investment. Don't even think about doing it.
100% a bad investment. Everybody should get out.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. There's no opportunity there. No, I think that there's great opportunity if you're smart about it. You are not going to cash flow. Maybe you will, and there's an exception to everything, but you're not going to cash flow when you're buying a brand new cabin in a very expensive market that's seeing standard, like they're building 300 new of the same thing out there. You're furnishing it. It's an expensive endeavor to start up. I know there's things like Airbnb arbitrage as well, but...
Actually, let's talk about that for a second. Can you just explain what that is, just real quick? Because I know that's a big thing on... the interwebs.
Yep. Airbnb arbitrage is the idea that you're going to approach a landlord or an owner and proposition them with a higher rental price to be able to rent their property out with their permission on the short-term rental site. So typically, sometimes you may pay them a fee or pay them a cut of the profits, but you are then responsible for the guest experience, furnishing it, all of that. And so it gives you the opportunity without coming up with a down payment to create an Airbnb business, which can be super beneficial and great. For me, I'm into real estate investing, and why I do short-term rentals is to increase that cash flow to do more long-term investments. So though I think it's an interesting approach, it's like kind of like a Turo of your car, but if somebody else's property, you don't get any of the tax advantages. You don't get any of the benefits of being a landowner or investor.
Building.
Yeah, the wealth building side, which is why I'm into it.
Yeah.
Maybe it gives some other people that opportunity to get that cash flow and position it into investing, but you're giving yourself another job.
Yeah.
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 And you got to look at it that way too. 'Cause
Yeah,
it is a job.
It's a business.
Yeah, that startup cost is not low. And then you have all of the communication, or what if your landlord changes his mind and he decides to sell his property? What are you doing with all of that? So,
Yeah. I have a question. You could answer this as somebody who does Airbnbs or just general investor.
Okay.
What's the best piece of investing advice you've ever gotten?
I love this one. I love this one a lot because my husband and I, now husband, 13 years ago, I was living in Lake Tahoe in a small cabin that I rented. He was going to school at UC Santa Cruz, and we joked that we're so rich, we have a beach house and a mountain house, and we were making like no money. And it was wonderful. It was amazing. And the advice I got was from a good family friend of ours who says, take the risk, you have the chance to lose it all once. And this was 6 years ago. It was 2016 when we were trying to buy our primary residence. And the market, even then, people don't remember, but it was still, we put 10 offers over 10 months and lost everything and ended up having to go like 100,000 over what we wanted to spend. And it was like, take that risk. You have the chance to lose everything once. And what that meant to us was, well, remember when we
Had nothing.
And serving tables and we're meeting in between our houses, and we thought that was the best life then. So like taking the risk now, you have a chance to still rebuild. So what? You lost everything. No one's keeping score but yourself. No one cares about you enough to keep score.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's just your reflection. So if the two of you are okay with taking the risk, willing to lose it, calculated risk at that,
Yeah, totally.
you have a chance to rebuild it together. Now,
That's
with
amazing.
my daughter, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, different story.
I become such a
different with
risk-averse
kids.
investor,
Yes,
but
100% different
I'm starting
story.
to be able to tiptoe back and not be in that,
New mom phase.
where you're like,
parent
okay,
phase,
we'll survive.
Nesting.
Yeah.
For somebody who's looking to get into short-term rentals, maybe us, who knows?
Yeah.
What would be your tip? What's the first thing they should do?
I think I would want to identify my cash position, right? How much do I want to invest? What's my return that I'm looking for on that? Because the numbers are going to vary greatly. If you're just looking for cash flow and return and high occupancy rate, you're going to want to go into those traditional vacation rental markets and have a competitive product with all of the amenities. If you're trying to enjoy it yourselves, you're going to find that happy medium in that blend. I want to be X amount of hours driving. What's unique to that place? So in your scenario, I think where are you guys trying to go? What do you want to do? And then what's that product? Are you going to try and get your capital back out? So
Always.
I would, always. Yeah. So I guess I
Possible.
would take it back to that strategy. So then you're looking for a stir or a Airbnb. Where do you have people that you could call on to repair that or to do those renovations? What's realistic?
Yep.
Maybe we can buy houses next door neighbors on a beach.
There you go.
Let's do
We
it.
could just
Yeah.
be partners.
I know.
Don't
There you
talk dirty to me. We're here for it. I think really deciding what's the end goal of this product. For us, it's always been we want to build our long-term rental portfolio that's under management by somebody else. The Airbnbs are double that long-term rental income, so it affords us the opportunity to lock away cash to put towards our long-term rental.
Pause. Sorry. This. Christian, you need to go. And we'll just continue on in a second.
Very odd.
We're almost there. You're
Oh, no,
doing
this is-
amazing.
This is fun. I didn't know I knew things about Airbnbs.
You know a lot. I'm impressed.
It used to be like, because I also had a short-term rental design business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it used to be like, and then everybody else got into it, and you're like, I have the investing side. I don't need to compete with everyone
Totally.
on designing these while you're driving your place to the bottom.
Totally. Okay, ready?
So you're going to do that, and then I'm just going to close it out.
And then I'm going to throw one at her.
Okay.
But it's okay. If we want to edit it out, you can. Okay, so reflecting on your journey as a person who's been doing Airbnbs for a while. If you could go back to the beginning, would you do anything different?
Absolutely. Yes. My biggest fault is imposter syndrome in every arena. And I really applied that in the Airbnb space as well. I would see people who were professionally running Airbnbs and markets where they were very competitive and think, I can't play in that market. This is the big dogs. And I have one really specific example of this. I was working on an A-frame in North Carolina. We bought this A-frame, right? North Carolina, cool. A-frames, they're all the rage.
Amazing.
It needed complete repairs. We got the price of the A-frame for the land value because when we did inspections, you're like, this would be a complete rebuild, but these people who built it came out to show it to us, and we just felt bad.
Totally.
And so we'll give them the land value, and then they accepted, and we're like, oh gosh,
crap,
we have a real project out here. So, right, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great purchase price.
Yeah.
The ARV's there, it makes sense. Well, I was also designing an Airbnb for a client in Lake Lure. So my purchase price, repair costs were about $200K out of pocket for a property that was worth $250. The numbers work, and it cash flows great as an Airbnb rental. But he purchased a property with the same amount down that was the purchase price of my property, same in repair costs. His property ARV was worth $800,000 or $900,000 when he was finished, and I had done all of the design for it, picked out all the finishes, and I'm so stoked for them. But that they were literally, I finished designing my A-frame and drove to his property in North Carolina to do the install of the furnishings, and we were just chatting through, like, stoked that our projects were finished, and so comparing those pro formas was the reality that you can still do it with the same capital. You just have to be strategic and not talk yourself down that, well, the purchase price is so much higher, surely I shouldn't be doing that project. Make it more of an apples to apples of that leverage of that capital that you can compete in those places. Don't think because the property's cheaper, it's the right investment.
Yeah.
That imposter syndrome is real.
It is.
With everything.
Yeah.
Trying to overcome that at any point in life is always a struggle and something that everyone, has to deal with.
I'm going to throw out something. Christian doesn't know I'm going to ask this. He really wants to do something, and I want to see your opinion. He wants to buy, I'm sure you've seen this online. He wants to buy some land, then build numerous little cabins, maybe have one central spot, sell some of them off, Airbnb them. What are your thoughts? Have you looked into this?
Yes and no. I wouldn't say I've looked into it to Shannon, who is the most detail-oriented person and could probably recite all of the litigious pieces on land use. But here's my version of how I've looked into it. When I look at the lending side of it, if you don't have a structure on the property, it's going to be a lot harder to get that capital and make that investment. Do I think it is super cool? Absolutely. But when I look at the utility side of bringing in utilities, that's where I start to have questions.
See,
Does the
This is my whole thing. It has to have sewer, it has to have water, it has to have power, all already on site to a structure that's already there. Then you build out all the remaining things after that.
See, that I love because it allows you then...
Yeah, you get a loan on it, and then you do all the rehab, and you got something.
And you're selling off these cabins?
Potentially, condoing them off like we do with Dadu's.
Okay.
Sell off maybe 2 or 3 to basically
pay for the others.
Offset everything else. Keep the other ones as rentals, short-term, mid-term,
and then you would just
long-term.
have a simple HOA servicing them all so they maintain the same rules. I love this idea. I'm here for it. I wonder what the true build out costs are, because
no idea.
Then are we going to have a property manager on site, or how does that work? Who's the cleaning team? Are they facilitating that? Does somebody have to sell if you've sold them off? What are the rules against this? And I was actually just listening to a podcast about this. With Kathy Fecky on the market. And she was saying that depending on the modeling, they had invested in one and the numbers weren't working. So everyone kind of sold at once. How would that affect your how is that going to affect it if people have the opportunity to sell off? So I don't know how that factors in. I'm not wise in that space, but I think it could be super cool. I think there's a really cool one as an example. Out near Wenatchee in wine country.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Bee caves or something like that. And I don't think they're separate ownership, but I think what they did was super cool because it's a unique destination now that they've done these independent structures on a resort style atmosphere where you get that same vibe, that same feeling. I love that because if you're having a wedding or an event there.
That's what we were thinking.
Whole thing
I absolutely love that idea. I wonder then you probably have a bed and breakfast tax.
It'll depend.
This is what we want to find out.
Yeah, because you're going to get, I'm sure, I wonder what qualifies that as a bed and breakfast instead of a short-term rental or a vacation home. And maybe then it's even more unique.
Could be more advantageous
because
as well.
it, like San Juan Islands, dream to have a short-term rental out there. But they're already capped for permits, and you don't have the same visibility into how long that wait list is. So you could buy a property there, or you sit on it forever. But if you bought
maybe a actual bed and breakfast,
and you
can skirt those rules a little bit because it's actually a bed and breakfast,
right.
and then you add all the other things on after.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of being creative.
This is why I didn't want to get you two together, because
I know
he comes up with these things, and I'm like, no, we have too many. We're doing a lot of things.
Christian, I love this idea. I do, because there's another one in Whidbey Island that has. I've been looking at these because
I take my question back. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it's such a cool thing.
And there's another one near Mount Rainier that I was looking at that you could do something like that with.
Yeah.
Well, and some people just resell them. Once they create this, they resell the whole package to somebody else.
That is the whole business that I really wish I could have a little more time for, because if you can set up, this is the hack. If you can take a derelict property in a vacation destination, most people that are buying there are buying for the cash flow, turnkey property management company. If you have the bandwidth to go in
and build that whole thing
and burr it out,
Yep.
get it designed, get it stocked, and turn it. That's what we did with our Gatlinburg property. We were able to 2x our purchase price in 16 months, because nobody there is going to go in and flip a vacation rental property. I wanted to do this in Tahoe, but my husband has a job.
Weird.
So that was like my big dream before the pandemic hit, is because I'm seeing all of these beautiful, bigger homes that people who live in the community can't come in and afford to do these rehabs to. But there is such a need for some of these older homes to get a little bit of love, be brought current, be put back in the market instead of sitting shuttered and boarded up.
Yeah.
You know, there's some for years. You can just tell by how the snow walls go in front of them, and then the pine leaves or the pine needles that just sit there year after year after year because they need repairs. They've been passed down through families, but people don't have the resources to make it happen.
Yeah.
So turnkey Airbnb
flipping.
Flipping. Yeah. If you set it up,
Incredible.
you get great reviews. You have the occupancy rate and the numbers. I think that is a cool business.
That we do not have time for, but I would love to do.
Stay focused. I know. Because it's like the fun stuff, the design, make it cool, and then you're out. Like, I set it up. We're good. Let's go.
Love that.
Yeah. All right. You have any last questions, Shannon?
No, that was my last. That was my
Okay.
last.
That was a trick question, and Christian and I fell for it.
I know. We totally fell for that, and we had a lot of fun with it, I think. Yeah. This is the stuff that when you get into real estate investing, when you start to build your tribe of friends that are also in this is the kind of conversations you have. It's super fun. You get to just go off on crazy ideas and go, man, but then you could do this, and then you could do that, then you could do this. And like, we have the opportunity, if we choose, to do something crazy like this and maybe even be really successful at it. Like, you don't know. Like, we know how to run the numbers, and this is the beauty of investing. You can have fun. You can build a community, and you don't have to have a 9-to-5 normal job. You can do other stuff with real estate. So that's the beauty of real estate. Amanda, thank you for sharing all of your amazing knowledge. You are insane to have built all of that you've done, like all 473 short-term rentals that you have. She's like, what the hell are you saying?
No, I'm just like, I hope my husband doesn't listen to this.
The last part we'll cut out for him.
Great.
So yes, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did today. I learned a ton. This was all news to me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Amanda, how can people reach out to you if they want to, see your properties? Maybe they want to rent one, or they want to find out more about what you do.
Yeah, I shuttered my vacation rental design business because I rather just buy them
and do it yourself.
Yeah. I get too FOMO. I'm like, you know what? I should have bought this one.
Yep.
So now it's just Instagram at ADMANDUH. Amanda. I should update that handle at some point.
Say it one more time.
At ADMANDUH. A really, really mature handle. Really mature. So I'm on social. I'm finishing up my duplex in Seattle and starting to furnish that. And then these guys have talked me into the possibility of building a dadu, so exploring that, and hopefully another project here in the next 60 days. So
Sweet.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm always inspired by all of your projects and so grateful to have another woman in the space.
Yes,
I mean,
totally.
it's rarely do you have somebody, not rarely, I'm grateful that this community is growing and there's so many of us dealing and here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Here.
it's so fun.
This is why I think I'm going to have Shannon on a lot more. She has been in this business with me since, I mean, really the beginning, almost 20 years at this point. And she's been behind the scenes at the Nossum group forever, always doing a ton, always making me look good, never taking any of the spotlight. And I want to share that spotlight. So I'm going to have her on this podcast more and more. She is amazing.
I do tell you what questions to ask anyway,
Yes.
so I might as well just ask them.
Exactly. She does. She writes the scripts. I just read them. It's really not hard for me.
You guys are the dream team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are in the market to buy a house in the greater Seattle area, and you do want to chat, I am a real estate agent at the Nossum Group at Wilson Realty. So happy to chat with you. You can always schedule a time with me. Go to awesomenossum.com/schedule. We can set up a quick Zoom call one-on-one and make that happen. So that's it for this episode of the Awesome in Seattle podcast. Again, thank you, Amanda. Shannon, thank you so much. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.